All right, thank you for staying with us. You're watching Daybreak on Trust Television. We'll take a look at the newspapers this morning and have a sense of what the stories are like here. Now, we begin with Daily Trust newspaper, and the lead story is a political story. The 2023 presidency, it says, push for northern candidacy heightens in APC. It has the writers that says promoters, prisoners of power. That's according to Tinubu's camp. We will lose if South is schemed out, according to Ali Ndume. Also, we have inside the game plan. That's one of the aspects of the story. And then it will create political problem, not disintegration. Professor Fage, you'd find all the details on page 4 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Now, the pictorial shows you men of the Federal Road Safety Corps helping truck driver in Jabi to push his vehicle. You could say that, well, quite patriotic and quite
interesting as well.
Yeah, consider, you know.
We'd like to see more of this, you know.
Yes, you know, it's not enough to sanction people on the roads, you know, as officials, you know, responsible for the safety of our roads. But also it's important to recognize when some of these challenges happen. I mean, when you have vehicles, you cannot rule out having, you know, problems,
you know,
mechanical problems with our vehicles.
There's a need for this civil operatives relationship to grow. You understand? Like, when you see road safety operatives do stuff like this, when they now stop you because you have violated one of the rules, it's a good thing.
Yes.
Because they're there for you when you are in trouble, and then of course, you know, they're there to also do their job.
It's important to respect them too,
of course,
because they are there in the interest of the members of the public as a whole. So it's quite a commendable one. All right, we'll see that below that. You'll see a story there that says EFCC arrests Accountant General Idris over 80 billion naira fraud. He's accused of money laundering and misappropriation of government funds.
Diversion of
funds. Those were
through bogus consultancies and all of that.
Yeah, but consultancy fees and the rest. And
the allegation says
contracts,
yes.
From what the story is saying, that he is accused of issuing contracts to, you know, family and friends, you know, and so it's quite disheartening when you see some of these things.
As I'm sure as the days unfold, there will be more information on all of that.
Yes. All right. So, you know, but you know, this is really a thing of concern, because in many government parastatals, government agencies and the rest of them, one of the practices is to, some of the officials, some of them actually issue contracts themselves using fictitious, you know, companies, you know, using. And
in some instances, you'd find out that those contracts are never executed at the end of the day.
And then there's no follow-up.
There's no follow-up,
because the person that is supposed to do the follow-up is the one that actually issued the contract. So it's important that the EFCC go after.
Yes. And in this instance, this is really, really big, because that's the Accountant General, and that's the Accountant General of the Federation. He has, Mr. Ahmed Idris has held that position since 2015.
True. So
yeah, so I'm sure a lot of Nigerians are watching out to see how this unfolds and where it leads to at the end of the day.
And I hope that it's not going to end up, you know, on the front pages of our newspapers.
Yeah.
We're definitely going to.
And I hope that their investigations, whatever they find, is made public, you know, and, you know, if there are other people involved, I hope they're able to get them as well.
Sure. All right. All right, we'll now take a look at some more stories. At the very bottom there, you'd see Ganduje reconciles with Barrow, shelves senatorial bid. And that story is on page 10.
Ayuba, you know, the political terrain in Kano is getting more and more interesting daily. Yes, you know, I was actually expecting this, because with the number of defections happening in the APC, you know, a lot of people moving from the APC to the new bride, the NNPP, I knew that it was, because Barrow wants to go back to the Senate. And Ganduje also wants the same seat, right? So if he didn't do this, who knows? Maybe Barrow would have been the next person on, on the move to the NNPP.
Can't say, but I mean, one must also recognize how strategic the Kano politics is to the northwestern part of the country. And so if this begins to happen in Kano, well, we are not sure what is now going to happen when you have the likes of Konkoso, who is very influential politician.
An experienced one at that.
State. Yeah. So we continue to follow up on that and see.
In fact, in the past couple of days, there have been reports of major defections that are waiting to happen in Kano.
Including the chief of staff.
No, that one shocked me when I heard about it. I mean, do you know what happens when you're sitting down and you hear that your chief of staff has defected? It can't get any worse. I mean, that's like the closest person to you, you know?
True. Well, we'll see.
And, you know, even as at yesterday, there were reports that a major political figure was going to defect to the NNPP from Kano State. That didn't happen, and we're watching to see what happens. I'm sure last minute negotiations and all of that may still be going on, but...
All right, let's take a look at some more. Still on the Daily Trust newspaper, below the pictorial on the very bottom, you see the stories. Another one says, bread, gas, push Nigeria's inflation to 8-month high. And then the next story, prison official kills trader over cigarette in Kano. At the very top, above the lead story, IPOB kills 2 soldiers, raises court, secretariat in Anambra. And then the next one, 4 presidential, 30 governorship aspirants pick PRP forms. So that's quite an interesting one. We'll continue to keep tab on.
I see PRP is also coming up. You know,
at least having 4 presidential candidates
and 30 governorship aspirants, that's no joke.
It's quite an impressive one.
It's an impressive one. Although their forms are also quite cheap. I know the amount for the Senate is 1.5 million, for governorship is 2.5 million. So, you know, if you cannot buy the ones of the 100 million, and, you know, you may also...
We'll see. We are not here to advertise for therapy, are we? All right, now let's take a look at some other papers this morning.
Yeah, then there's the business day. The business day is talking economy. Surging wheat prices evoke ditched cassava policy. And then we have airlines face fresh fuel crisis as NNPC's supply dries up. That's basically their major headlines. As you know, the business day is not known to have many stories on its front page. But then, Ayuba, look at this airline thing. You remember last week when we were talking about it, when they said there was this agreement that was reached that the airlines were going to get diesel at the fuel at 480, and that was going to last for 3 months. You know, we talked about it here that shouldn't there be a more lasting solution to this problem? And I mean, look, we're already back to this.
And who knows, maybe after that discussion, that didn't happen.
Yes, that's what they are saying. They're saying that promise hasn't matured. They've not been able to get the product at that rate yet. And that is why. So the problem that appeared to have gone away last week is still back with us. That's what this means.
Oh, there seems to be a major problem, you know, with the whole energy thing in Nigeria. Even for the fuel, well, we've seen that the queues, you know, I'm talking about for the motorcycles
Petrol.
now, yes. For the queues are disappearing now.
Are they really? And, lots of petrol stations are still not selling.
Yeah, well, but there are less queues, I think. From what I've seen around, there are less.
Well, I went to about 3 yesterday, and they were not even selling at all.
Well,
you know, when I see queues, I feel better that, okay, at least you have and you're selling. So maybe at some point it will get to my turn. But when I drive past and I don't even see you selling, I get scared.
Well, maybe at that particular time. But I've observed that maybe in some places.
Maybe in some places.
Yes, I've observed that the queues are gradually reducing. But that's beside the point. What is important is, you know, these bridging claims that, you know, the marketers are actually talking about. even though that we've seen that the federal government has, dismissed that claim that, look, there's no such thing as 500 billion naira bridging claims, to be paid and all of that. And from what we understand, that it's meant to be a continuous process. And so we hope that, with the new changes that we are also seeing with respect to the PIA, new agency replacing the old one and all of that, I hope that that will not disrupt, the supply chain as far as petroleum is concerned.
And one thing I would like is, when these things happen, it would be nice for everybody to be on the same page. It bothers me when government is saying, oh, this is the reason there's no petrol, and the marketers are saying, no, it's because you haven't paid us this amount. At that point, you're wondering what exactly is the true situation of things, right? So it would be nice if we're told the exact position of things, so that.
All right. Now let's take a look at the Blueprint newspaper this morning. It also has some very interesting stories. The lead story is an investigation basically around politics. It says why Malami, Talen Silva Ngige may not return to office after resignation. You'd also find other stories below the name tag there. It says how EFCC nabbed AGF Ahmed Idris over alleged 80 billion naira fraud. Also, the next story there, Deborah, court remand suspects in prison. And then you'd also find 2023, Malagi promises to reconstruct Bida Mina Road. Now, these are some of the stories on the Blueprint, but at the very bottom there, you would see some other stories there that says Nigeria's inflation rises third consecutive time to 8-month high of 16.8. You have also terrorists kill 7, abduct monarch in Kano. Then Anambra, gunmen burn down court, local government secretariat, and kill policeman. Other stories there, guide parties on issue-based campaigns. NGE tells members. 383 visually impaired candidates sat for 2022 UTME JAM. And then the next one, 2023, my preference for Yahaya Bello over Sibanjo, Tinubu, Hafsat, Abiola. All right, that's that. And now we have, some interesting stories on that one. For me, the one about the visually impaired sitting for JAM. I believe that happened in Jos sometime last week. And it's quite an interesting one that we're having, that the agencies of state are actually recognizing
the physically challenged persons and making provisions for them.
And making provisions for them is the way to go. Because sometimes you actually look at it, it's almost as if they are schemed out of everything that is happening. I mean, for being physically challenged, let's not forget that, I mean, if they will have their way,
they wouldn't want to be in that position.
Way. So it's very important that as a society, we create such avenues, we create opportunities.
That also goes for places of work. There's always been that talk about places of work having facilities that will aid and that would support people that are physically challenged to be able to live normal lives and to be able to work in offices as well.
Sure. And then, of course, the inflation story. Where we
already see where we are. And so, well, with the cost of things across, I wasn't expecting anything different, really.
I feel like it's like we make a step forward.
And then we'll go back 2 steps.
And I think that that's what's happening as far as inflation
and
is
in
concerned.
this case, they said the cost of bread and gas pushed it. And the one for the gas was because of the long scarcity that we experienced. It made a lot of Nigerians to go to patronize the black marketers and thereby cost Nigerians to spend more. So, of course.
And then for the bread. Well, we know about the
Russia-Ukraine crisis.
Which a lot of experts have, confirmed that there's going to be a shortage of supply in terms of wheat, which is a major ingredient, used
for
the making
bread.
of bread. Here in Nigeria, we do not produce as much, and so when that happens, definitely, what do you expect? There's definitely going to be an inflation.
And
So
that takes you back to the lead story on the Business Day that says surging wheat prices evoke ditched cassava policy. That's one problem we have in this country. We have policies, they come up. You remember the cassava bread thing? No, I mean, where is it at this point? I can't remember what happened to it or how it ended. Now they are saying it's evoking the ditched policy. That means we're thinking of going back to it to revive it and to see what can be done with it, right?
True. Yeah, it's always important that we...
To have backup.
Perhaps, sometimes you kind of feel like maybe some of these unfortunate things should be happening so that, once in a while, Nigeria will wake up.
But how long do we stay awake? That's another question. These unfortunate things happen. We rush to the alternative, and then immediately things appear to be getting better. We relax again and say, and then we wait again for another crisis to come.
Let's hope that this time around it's going to be for real.
Honestly. You see this too.
We cannot run away from the fact that we need to look at internal solutions to our problems.
Of course.
Some of these things, we can actually deal with them here, in the country without actually looking out.
We don't have to import everything. Yeah. Because anytime there's a problem there, we run into trouble. You see the story of abduction in Kano. That shouldn't be happening, right? Like for at least Kano is not one of the states that have been in that position up until now, and this is is dangerous.
Well, it's like if you look at the northern region, the entire region, it's almost like there's no one is a sacred cow. I mean, no one is an exception. No one is an exception to this. So we're all dealing with this same thing.
We're all together and this thing, and that is why.
And I hope that we all confront it together.
Yes, and then we'll try to, for states that are not yet under these kind of problems, we should try to keep it at bay. Like, yes, because only a couple of states are not under these attacks at the moment. So it's important to keep the problem at bay, and while we try to tackle the states that are already battling them. If not, the whole place will be overrun, and I
agree totally. All right, now let's take a look at more papers this morning.
There is the News Direct. The News Direct has the lead story, alleged 80 billion naira fraud. Reactions trail arrest of Accountant General of the Federation, Ahmed Idris. And then we have this story here that says, woman backs 12 years imprisonment for defrauding church. Oshun not for sale to highest bidder. Oyetola Campaign Council replies, Adeleke, PDP. There's also this story at the top. Lagos State government condemns Lekki lynching, calls for calm. Also, we have this story, Oshun 2022, over 500 PDP loyalists defect to APC in Ayedade local government area. We also have the story here, Ipman seeks EFCC support in curbing oil theft in Niger Delta. Ayuba, woman backs 12 years imprisonment for defrauding church.
Well, the law should take its course.
And I guess the fraud is everywhere.
Of course, I believe that if we can uphold the law, then that's the only way we can get to deal with some of these things that are happening these days, so that it will serve
as a deterrent
to others who are interested or who are intending to commit such crimes. All right. Also, other story. We are seeing that Ipman is seeking EFCC support in curbing oil theft in Niger Delta. Well, that's a genuine one. We hope that the EFCC will use all the resources at its disposal. It's very important, but
especially when viewed against the fact that we haven't been able to produce the quota that is given to us because of partly because of the oil theft in that region. Yeah.
All right, let's move on now and take a look at the Nation newspaper this morning. The Nation newspaper also leads with the EFCC arrest of the federal government top accountant, talking about Idris over the 80 billion naira fraud It says money laundering in real estate suspected. AGF faces allegation of overstaying in office. Yes. Other stories at the very top, you'd also see at above the masthead, Silva telling opt not to resign. Amechi also allows Hadura quit. You also have Supreme Court to hear appeal on Section 84, subsection 12 on Thursday. Oshun voters can't be bought. Oyetola replies, Adeleke. Federal government blames tax exemption for revenue loss. You'll also see INEC gives APC, PDP, others deadlines. ASU strike. Students protest in Ondo, Oyo, and Ogun State. These are some of the stories there about the ASU strike. For me, I think that it's something that is becoming, well, it's an issue of real concern. Really.
It's an issue of real concern, and no end in sight. That's just the part that bothers me. It doesn't appear like there's any solution in sight anytime soon.
Well, we hope that the government do the needful as soon as possible. Let's take a look at other stories on the Punch newspaper.
The Punch newspaper has its major story. Timetable, INEC talks tough as 18 parties fail to conduct primaries. It has a rider that says, no going back on election timetable. June 3rd is deadline. INEC warns parties. APC orders intensify lobbying as commission says terminal date for primaries fixed. And then we have another story here that says dollar hits 600 naira at parallel markets. FX supply shrinks. There's this other story. Amid failed negotiation, NRC to resume Abuja-Kaduna train services. Then there's also the story that says fraud. EFCC arrest accountant general alleges 80 billion naira diversion. And then on the beneath, we have a story. ASU ex-minister fought state varsities as protest rocks Southwest and Edo State. Then there's this other story here that says Northern, Southwest, South-South presidential aspirants greedy, selfish. This is coming from Kalu. And then we have update on the Lagos lynching. Lagos lynching, engineer's widow demands justice. False ritual claim. 123 motorcycles seized. About this lead story here, INEC talks tough as 18 parties fail to conduct primaries.
Well, I hope that the political parties understands that INEC means business.
Yeah.
And, it's not going back on what the electoral
on
law
its deadline
sets out to do. And you know, when you listen to the chairman, he is actually making some very valid. He made some very valid points this time he talks about this, which is the fact that with the new electoral law, there are timelines for virtually everything.
Set for everything, and there has to be gap between a particular exercise and the next one. And so any shift will affect the next one and the entire exercise. Exactly. So it's important that they stick to the guideline that has been provided.
Yes.
But today is 17. The deadline is June 3rd. So let's hope that all of them conduct their primaries between now.
Yeah, and the implication of this will be that if political parties do not adhere, then they stand to lose out.
They stand to lose out.
Whole process. And yes, they are likely to say, okay, we are going to court and all of that. Yeah.
You know, that's the part that I do not like, because they go to the court, they waste the time of the INEC and themselves, and then that will add to the amount of money spent on elections generally in the country, because as you're aware, I look at the amount that INEC has already said the election is going to cost. So any extra thing, if any party takes them to court, they have to go to court, they have to come with lawyers and all of that. So that's extra money. So the best way out is for all the parties to just stick to the rules and then conduct their primaries before that day.
All right. Also, we have the dollar hitting 600 million.
Scary one day.
Naira rather, not million.
Very scary one day.
You know, the parallel market. And with that, how do we expect to actually bring down inflation? That's one thing that I keep, you know, pondering about. You know, if the dollar is there, up there, you know, and the naira is here, down here, how do you bring down inflation?
And for a country that is heavily import dependent, we import virtually everything that we use.
That's
and
the
so,
point.
of course, it's going to affect everything that, you know.
That's the point. It looks almost impossible as long as we do not stabilize
The naira.
You know, the naira, I don't know. And we can only do that when we go back to production and exports, you know, channels of creating more dollars and bringing more dollars into the system.
Our problems are plenty, Ayuba. When we go back to production, look at the insecurity situation in the country. That is affecting production really, really
and
badly.
And the infrastructural deficit.
Exactly.
Power. It's
Power, everything.
List. That's why that's an issue of great concern. So
yeah, I hope all these aspirants are looking at all these problems as well, listening there. I hope they're listening that we indeed have problems that are waiting to be looked into.
Yeah, quite a lot of them really. Top of the hour, and we'll be taking a look at our headlines again. Kidnappers gun down 6 Kano residents, abduct village head.
Prepare for flight cancellations. Airline operators alert Nigerians.
Blasphemy. Suspects arrested over Deborah's death. Remanded in prison.
Now the details. Gunmen suspected to be kidnappers have killed 6 persons in a village in Takai local government area of Kano State. Takai local government in Kano South is about 80 kilometers from Kano metropolis, and it shares a border with several towns of Jigawa State. The gunmen were said to have raided Karfi village in the local government and abducted the 53-year-old village head, Abdul Yaya Ilo. They were said to have stormed the village on 3 motorcycles from Bauchi State through Ringim Forest in Jigawa. The attackers were already on their way out of the village after abducting the traditional ruler when the villagers mobilized the vigilante groups and youth to track them down. The gunmen were said to have turned back and opened fire on the trailing groups, shooting 9 of them, out of which 6 persons have so far been confirmed dead, while 3 others are said to be responding to treatment. Confirming the incident, the spokesman of the police in Kano, SP Abdullahi Haruna Kiawa, said a team of operatives has been dispatched to the local government with the goal of rescuing the abducted village head and arresting the suspects.
All right, the airline operators of Nigeria has alerted Nigerians to an imminent disruption in flight operations as the scarcity of aviation fuel, popularly known as Jet A1, worsens. The spokesperson for the association, Obiora Okonko, in a statement on Monday, said that the fuel scarcity was affecting smooth operations of air transport operations, adding that it will lead to flight rescheduling and cancellations. Okonko, however, said that the association and its members were working tirelessly in alliance with product marketers, government and relevant stakeholders to ensure availability and proper pricing of aviation fuel in the country.
The police have arraigned 2 suspects in connection with the murder of 200-level student of Shehu Shagari College of Education, Sokoto, Deborah Samuel, who was accused of blasphemy. The suspect, Biliamino Aliyu and Aminu Hunkuchi, who are also students of the college, were arraigned before a magistrate's court in the state on Monday. According to the police first information report, the suspects were arraigned as a result of the mob action which led to the lynching of the student. After the suspects pleaded not guilty to the charges, the police prosecutor, Inspector Khalil Musa, urged the court for another date to enable the police complete their investigation. However, the defense counsel, led by Professor Mansour Ibrahim, who did not oppose the application, pleaded with the court to grant the defendant's bail, citing sections 157, 161, and 164 of the Administration of the Criminal Justice Law of Sokoto State, as well as section 36, subsection 5 of the 99th Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, as amended. The court, however, adjourned ruling on the application to a later date, which will be communicated to the lawyers. He therefore directed the defendants to be remanded at the Sokoto Correctional Center.
All right, that's that for the news highlights. We'll now take a look at our papers again, this time around with a guest in the studio. We have Jonathan Onoja, who joins us to give us perspectives on some of the stories on our front pages. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on Daybreak.
Yeah, good morning, my brother. It's my pleasure always.
All right, now, quite interesting stories. Let's begin with Daily Trust. Let's take a look at that. The lead story on Daily Trust newspaper this morning talks about 2023 presidency. Push for northern candidacy heightens in APC. Promoters, prisoners of power, according to Tinubu's camp. We will lose if South is schemed out, according to Leon Dume. Inside the game plan, you'd find the details on page 4. It will create political problem, not disintegration, Professor Fage says there. You also have IPOP kills 2 soldiers, raises court secretariat in Anambra. 4 presidential, 30 governorship aspirants pick PRP forms. And then below the pictorial, EFCC arrest Accountant General Idris over 80 billion naira fraud. Ganduje reconciles with Barrow, shelves senatorial bid. And then you have also bread, gas push Nigeria's inflation to 8-month high. And then prison official kills trader over cigarette in Kano. Well, these are some of the stories. Let's get perspectives. Thank you again for coming on the program.
Thank you.
The story about prison official killing a trader over cigarette in Kano. I don't know if you've seen that story anyway, and it just raises concern about how much value we place on life these days. The slightest provocation, someone is dead. So for security personnel and security official, clearly there are guidelines, there are rules of engagement when you are armed, when to use your firearm and when not to use it. Why do we see it being recklessly used in this instance, in your opinion?
It's sometimes attached to, the system. You see, when the system is failing, of course, it's not just about the papers, it is the individuals that are there. So you talk about the personnel. So how can someone just pull up a AK-47 and just shoot someone over a cigarette case, even if the person have committed a worst offense? It does not call for such act. What you could have just simply do is to pick the person and prosecute the person. But shooting the person, I watched a video. So bad of it. And I see a young, gallant Nigerian police guy, and over a provocation of something, brought the lady out and began to shoot. Just like that. And the lady was like, you're shooting now, you're shooting. And the passengers were like, stop it, even with before his superiors. So it shows to, it gets to show that we don't have trained personnel. What we have sometimes are just charlatans.
Do you think
that's not supposed to be in the system?
Do you think that maybe somehow some of these security personnel deal with some kind of trauma that, that requires some kind of attention?
No, I have seen that the system, the recruitment process is not well scrutinized. You still have some personnel doing drugs in the system. So sometimes their art is maybe...
Don't they go through some routine checks and all
Did
of
you
that?
see it? Have you been to any recruitment centers where they test you whether you do drugs or not?
No, I mean those that have been recruited.
Yes.
Isn't there some routine checks?
What are the routine checks? When you still go to checkpoints and you see police officers or you still see officials still smoking and taking alcohol on duty, all in the name that they want to charge their morale. So what is the routine system? What is the routine check? That they don't drink, they don't smoke, they don't take drugs?
Based on what you know, are there like laws against these things, or it's just just like anyone else, you are free to?
Even the guard in your house, posted to you by a security company, there are laws, there are rules that you don't drink on duty, you don't smoke on duty, you don't do drugs. Those that tell you don't do on duty. But if you do it before you come to duty,
is also another problem. So you cannot take over duty under the influence of alcoholism or anything, or drugs. But you're talking about our conventional security system. There are laws, there are rules. There are rules that should guide them. There are rules that are guiding them, but they flaunt it. And the authority is not taking any, action to serve as deterrent. So that's why you can see how misfiring. Maybe a woman in Wuse here can just refuse to pay the normal allowance to them, and the next thing you just hear accidental discharge. So until someone is, used as like a scapegoat, then others will now say, yes, there's a problem. We have to take.
Okay. Do you think that there's a problem with, say, instances where you have confrontation between, unarmed civilians and some of these security personnel, and some civilians can actually be very provoking. They can actually be provoking. Some go the extra mile to dare, security officials who are in their duty post, who are out there, to protect Nigerians and to do their jobs. And sometimes they're actually doing their jobs, and then you find people coming to, to dare them and all that.
It does not get to the height of pulling the trigger. It does not get to the height of pulling the trigger. Globally, you don't see when they're not provoking you, the best you could do. You see, like what happened in Lagos some time ago, you'll see the abuse. That is the height of professionalism. You see the abuse on the man, you see everything, you see how he was accused, you see how he was abused, rather. But he still maintained that tempo. He would have just carried the trigger and nobody would blame him.
It takes a lot of emotional intelligence.
But that is it. They lack emotional intelligence.
Yes, but do you think that maybe what they need at this point is some kind of counseling and, people, maybe they need some kind of training and retraining?
You've just hit the right word. They need some kind of training and retraining.
Not just
orientation.
training.
And this time around, because of the society we find ourselves, you understand it. The police, you don't have barracks. The same people you are molesting, you still get back home and stay with them. You are not like the army. So your approach should be civil. You should have a civil approach towards issues. No matter how it is, the people you are dealing with are the same people you still get back home and meet. So you should be very careful when you are handling their cases. There could be a brother among them that will recognize you tomorrow. So what I'm trying to say is that they need this kind of, I've always advocated that the police system has to be reformed, right? But this time around, they need a specific training for their personnel.
Well, sometimes these security officials, they are also human beings, isn't it? We live in at a time when it's almost very difficult to even know, as a security official, to know who actually is your enemy. It's very difficult. Because we have enemies of state living among people these days, and so at what point would you say that you feel endangered and you feel that you are under some kind of?
There are guides there. There are guys even in their art. At what point did you use the trigger? You see, what point means that the height of it. At what point have you tolerated? What is the level of your what we call perseverance? How have you been able to bear this whole thing before you pull the trigger? Now, at what point they made it very clear there. They said, look, if your life is in danger, is your life in danger by mere saying, Oga, I'm not giving you money? Is your life in danger by just mere saying, I'm not leaving? Your life is not at danger. The person you're talking to is just a helpless and unarmed person. He's not armed. So why would you just pull your trigger? If he's armed and then he wants to retaliate by telling you, I am not going. You am carrying the trigger and then you now said, come on. I now said, leave this place. You say, I'm not leaving, sir. I can't leave. And the next thing you want to do is to pull out the trigger. Then Anna said, no, I have to defend myself. But today they don't do that.
Another thing I'm thinking is it possible to say that security operatives do not leave their post of assignment with their arms? For instance, he went to buy cigarette. That would mean that he had left his post, wherever it was that he was supposed to be. did he have to go with his arm?
No. Actually, if he's on duty and within the premises or within the jurisdiction or wherever he's covering, he's supposed to go with the arms because you will not know where you meet the enemy.
But sometimes you see security operatives in transit, maybe with their arms. Is that okay?
Very wrong. Very wrong. In fact, that is one thing I have always said. You're not supposed to carry your arm in a public transportation or transport. It's a psychological trauma on the people. It's psychological trauma. How will you? Okay, should anything happen, what would be the judgment? What would be your take? So even when you said you are on escort duty, you are not supposed to carry arms in the same vehicle with your principals. You're supposed to take other vehicles for cover because anything can happen. So I don't see why in this current system we see them more and more, but you wouldn't blame them. Not every person will have the money to afford one vehicle.
So, but maybe there's a need to review the law or the code of conduct so much so that at least there is restriction on where they can go to with those arms. I think that if that is done, it's possible to reduce these accidents.
The life also will be in danger if you do that. The life will be in danger. You know why?
How?
In the current situation, in the current Nigeria, a policeman living in a society, a community, because of the homegrown terror we've come to stay with, they will be the one to identify that man. The policeman don't have a barrack. If they have a barrack, this can work. But since there has no barrack, there's no barracks for them, and the conventional approach of their operation is just within the society or community. They don't go out to do anything. There's no way you can limit them to only when they're on duty to carry arms, because there are times they have to defend themselves, since they are also protecting the whole country. They have to defend themselves.
All right, well, in defending themselves, clearly, like we've highlighted earlier, that there are rules of engagement and that they must exhaust all options to exercise restraint on their part and caution. Because I also recall that a few weeks ago we had an incident where a police officer was deployed to a party.
Yeah.
And after so much drunk, after so many drinks, he began to shoot the same people that brought him.
Exactly. So when you hear these things, this is more like a daily occurrence. Sometimes sometimes we don't get to hear, about some of them, but it's like it's a consistent happening.
Okay. Still on the Daily Trust newspaper, there's this story that IPOB kills 2 soldiers, raises court secretariat in Anambra. Also yesterday, parts of Asaba was shut down because IPOB was extending its activities to that state. I mean, Asaba is in Delta, not in the not in the southeast at all. It's in the Niger Delta. Now, in your view, what can be done to handle this problem?
You see, as far as I'm concerned, IPOB is just an image painted for Nigerians to believe that it is people operating within the state. But from what I am seeing, IPOB is just a hired machinery to destabilize the Southeast.
By who?
Well, by some known actors. We've in the recent times heard about leader, one who called himself the leader. And whatever he's having with the federal government, I wish him well. You don't destroy your own house because you are looking for a national attention. It does not make any sense. Like what happened in the Northeast, it will take them years before the Northeast will come back. You talk about infrastructure, you talked about all the things that have gone wrong. They have to put those things in place. So you don't just wake up overnight and begin to destroy your own state for no just reason. They are hired machineries to destabilize the Southeast. And it is high time the governors comes together and said no to this. People that can shut down the economy, people that can shut down the activities in the state and tell you sit at home order when the government cannot say otherwise. Look at what happened the other day in Enugu State. They are gradually destabilizing the Southeast. And they're just going to be looking at it with the mere eyes of it is IPOB. No, it has gone beyond the case of IPOB.
You know, now, just yesterday also, we heard that there was tension in Imo State, over the sit-at-home order, where there were some people who were out to enforce the sit-at-home order. But again, we are also seeing that there seems to be some kind of contradiction. The spokesman of the group would later release a statement, will say that, well, IPOB is now responsible for enforcing this sit-at-home order. They have said that countless times, that they no longer observe the Mondays sit-at-home. I think since from about 2021, sometimes in September or so, where they release a statement suspending the sit-at-home order and all of that. But it has continued, right? And this contradiction that we are seeing, in one breath we hear that IPOB attacks so and so place, and then in another we hear that they are denying some of those happenings. What exactly is happening in your opinion?
It's just because the government is not in power. The government is not executing or using the authority that it's supposed to use. Otherwise, you don't sit in power. You don't be in power. And another group gives order. The order is already working. The order is already effective. Because if it's not effective, they wouldn't have come to say, no, we are not the one. So you see, even when, you can understand that when in those days, you see one group will kill, and then the other group will come and tell you, we're not the one that actually killed. Already they have what? They have dominated.
So do you think that perhaps, maybe IPOB is now having factions?
Groups, factions.
And, there seem to be some kind of chaos. They seem to be not in control of their own movement.
There's no way you could have...
Because one group says, we only do sit at home when Nnamdi Kanu is going to be appearing in court. So each time he's going to be appearing in court, we're going to declare a sit at home. So it's not the usual, Monday sit at home. So it's an indication of loss of control, isn't it?
Yes. See, you can have a situation of that magnitude, and you expect, a control system from the center. No. Even just if it is two states that you're having such situations, there is no way you will have a control from the center. There must be a divided homes against itself, for interest and other reasons.
Only yesterday, or a few days ago, the governor of Anambra State, Chukwuma Soludo, he visited Nnamdi Kanu. The pictures were everywhere. And he said that Nnamdi Kanu is not comfortable with the killings in the region, and is also not happy with the sit-at-home. Now, this IPOB claimed to be acting on his behalf. They claim to be doing it because he's been held. Now, if he's saying this, well, how can this, how do you look at both statements?
You see, one time he denied some of his followers in court. Yes, one time he denied his followers in court. And it gets to show that when a man calls himself a leader, the agitation, yes, has been. But when he calls himself a leader and it cannot control the followers, then he has lost the sense of leadership. Because when you say you are a leader, every other persons are becoming your follower. And your followers should be able to accept your views of things, of what you have championed. Because you are the one that brought this. So if you say, this is my vision on this matter, I expect that if you have actually groomed followers, they should believe what you have, you should believe in your vision. But unfortunately, with his contradicting statement to what the governor said, I never heard it from Nnamdi Kanu. It's the governor, Charles Soludo, said Nnamdi Kanu is not comfortable with the killings. Nnamdi Kanu as a person has not been opportune to speak to the press as the current state of his mind, what Biafra is all about now. Since his detention and all of that, we've not been able to hear what exactly his views of the IPOB or Biafra is all about now. So, to me, there's a loss of what? Interest. And number two, there's no command structure on the IPOB situation. There's no command structure. And that have certainly given rooms to all sort of criminality, which soon will become the case of what we are hearing today, the Boko Haram, the banditry, and all of that. That is another way. You see, if you look at what happened with the Niger Delta and all of that, this is how they all started. Agitations and all of that.
So what can the state governors of that region and the Ohanese Ndibo, what can these two groups do to handle this? Because these are just a group of people. I don't want to believe that they are big enough to overrun, the states.
You see, in the Southeast, for those that are living there, they want to tell you the truth. I've made contacts when this thing started happening. Each household has a member of the IPOB. Each household have a member as a member.
Every household.
Every household.
How do you?
How did you come to that
I'll tell you
conclusion?
now. I'm
come
coming.
to that conclusion?
I'm coming. Just take your visit. Just take a visit there.
I was in the north. I was in the southeast recently.
Okay.
Yes.
And then ask few questions.
But the conclusion that each house,
I'm letting you know because
it's a bit too general if you ask me.
I'm coming. You see, when a situation, because when you are doing analysis, you do your worst case analysis, and then you look at it from that perspective. What if this happened? You see, what if this happened is like, in the Southeast today, what if the government said, let's fight this IPOB? Who are they going to use to fight the IPOB? Who? The police? The police that the son is a member of the IPOB? The soldier, who's the son, is a member of the IPOB? So, now, the informant the IPOB as a group have in the Southeast is like in each household.
So what's the best way out of this now?
The government have the role to play. The community, unfortunately, which they're supposed to use, have a role to play. But then, like I say, it's unfortunate. The community have been blindfolded into the vision or into the belief that we are fighting for a just cause. You understand me? That's why I generalize it there. That if not so, you can see they say sit at home. It's not coming from government. By implication, everybody sits at home. And that means that you concur.
That means you're saying that there's a need for some form of sensitization.
To the people. That's what the government can do, because as it is now, if IPOB gives order today, and the Anambra or Imo State government gives an order today, just generalize it. Who will the people respect?
All right.
Is it IPOB?
Okay, now let's talk about other stories on our papers. The Nation newspaper leads with the story about EFCC arresting the federal government's top accountant over 80 billion naira fraud. You also have other stories. Supreme Court to hear appeal on Section 84, Subsection 12 on Thursday. Silva, Tarlin opt not to resign. You also have Oshun voters can't be bought. Oyetola replies Adeleke. And then federal government blames tax exemption for revenue laws. Also, the pictorial there on the Nation newspaper is showing a protest that held in Ondo, ASU strike protest that held in Ondo, Oyo, and Ogun State. These are some of the stories. Now, this protest is beginning to happen in pockets from the southern part of the country. Where is this taking us? What are your concerns about this ASU strike and the protests that we're seeing now?
Well, the protests it has become a normal, practice when issues go out of control. Protest is not new. And what led to protests are when people, or groups perceive upward cheats from a particular, person, group, or from the government. So what they are protesting is just to make you understand that they are not comfortable with the situation. Protest is when people are not comfortable or happy with a particular decision or situation. And we all know the ASU strike is becoming a recurrent issue in Nigeria, not just in this government. It's, over the years, becoming a practice.
But don't you think that there are security implications to this protest?
Of course.
Because they could be hijacked.
No, of course. You see, that is not even my fear. The security implications is that You see, these people, the students have been at home over the year, over the months, and you see them protesting now. Some of them have adulterated the standard. So even going back to the classroom now is another sign of insecurity on the part of educational system. Because some of them during these holidays, or not holiday per se, this unfortunate holiday, must have involved in the act of smoking, courtesan and all of that. So, and drugs, which is now rampant. Taking drugs and learning how to do so many things. Carrying AK-47 to rob. You can't take away all these things from students in high institutions. So you think they are going back to the classroom to learn again? No. They are just letting you to understand that when this thing continues, we will no longer be doing it like we are doing it to hide. We'll be coming out broad daylight to act, to do what we're supposed to do.
So in your view, what do you think can be done? Because ASU is insisting that there's an agreement, government must fulfill it. Government on its part is saying that we do not have the money to fulfill this agreement. So where's the middle point?
You see, government cannot continue giving us these excuses that there's no money. And for that reason, things should, cripple that. You have someone stealing about 80 billion, allegedly. And you have a political party who can raise almost 20-something billion. Why not negotiate for somehow, a way, a preventative diplomacy, seek for another opportunity, so how you can dialogue with this, because we can understand it is not just from this, it's not about just one government. It has been, a recurrent issue. So you can just look at the situation and say, let us find an alternative to solve the problem, but not all the time. You look at it, you don't respect agreement, you don't respect anything, you just look at people and said they are nothing. These are people, these are professors you use for elections.
All right. I would like us to take a look at, other stories, particularly about the one about the arrest of the Accountant General of the Federation. To get more details on that, let me just read the story. Operatives of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, arrested serving Accountant General of the Federation, Ahmed Idris, in connection with diversion of funds and money laundering activities to the tune of 80 billion naira. According to the commission, intelligence showed that the AGF raked off the funds through bogus consultancies and other illegal activities using proxies, family members, and also close associates. The funds were reportedly laundered through real estate investments in Kano and Abuja. Idris was said to have been arrested after failing to honor invitations by the EFCC to respond to issues connected to the fraudulent acts. We'll take perspectives on our General Editor, Deputy General Editor, Abdulaziz is joining us to give us also some perspectives to this. Thank you for joining us on Daybreak, Abdulaziz.
Thank you, Ayuba, and good morning, listeners and viewers.
All right. Well, to get your own, perspectives on this, this story is coming as a shock to many people. The serving Accountant General, and if you look at the amount of money that he's been accused of laundering, that's quite huge, isn't it?
Yeah. So as you said, Ayuba, it came really as a surprise to a lot of people that a senior government official like the Accountant General could be not only invited but also arrested in this circumstance. But also a lot of people are saying that this is not really shocking as such, because as some people familiar with some of the things happening in that office say, it's actually, even before the coming of Idris, it's a place that a lot of shoddy deals are allegedly perpetrated by occupiers of the office, because of how central and important it is to the running of government business. But also, in this particular case, it is quite shocking, because for Buhari's government especially, which comes on the back of fighting corruption and allegations that the previous administration of the PDP had plundered the Nigerians' Commonwealth, and that the government is coming to correct the wrongs and all that. And mark you that Ahmed Idris is perhaps the first most significant appointee of the Buhari government, because he was appointed in June, just like a month, even less than a month after Buhari himself was sworn in as president. Then his tenure was also renewed after the 2019 election, despite protests, because there were people saying that as a civil servant, he was due to retire when he attained the age of 60 in the year 2020, in November of that year. But he, I think, argued, and of course, perhaps the government agreed with his argument, that he was occupying the office as a political appointee, not as civil servant. It's some sort of abracadabra. But this magnitude of haste to say that this much amount of money is stretched to one person is quite alarming, and a huge dent on the government's anti-corruption mantra.
Abdulaziz, this Ahmed Idris has been in office since 2015, and the EFCC is coming up with this now. This will be 7 years down the line. Do you have any information on how long this investigation has been ongoing before they came up with this now?
So no one, investigation like this, sometimes you can't for sure say for how long, and I have not been able to get the information about the duration it took for them to gather evidence and arrive at this conclusion. But it is evident that it is something that has taken perhaps a lot of time, but also, as one Facebook user wrote last night, there were so much, because some people are complaining, or especially lawyers are talking about this being another media trial. But one user commented that there have been a lot of evidence in the court of public opinion to arrive at EFCC is now saying, because there are so many properties in places, especially in Kano, where Idris comes from, linked to the man, which he allegedly owned in so many places in Kano. There is this huge market outside the state capital. There are at least 2 other residential areas where properties allegedly linked to him, which are presently displayed. So all those things, I think, are too glaring and very easy to find. It was not. It are not things that were in hiding.
Okay,
so
Abdulaziz, we cannot blame those who say, well, perhaps this is just another media trial, because we've seen similar instances in the past, isn't it? When, if the president can renew an appointment of such a person beyond even, his retirement age, like it has been argued, what makes you think, or what guarantee, what assurance that Nigerians even have that?
People raising around about the possibility of this being, or the danger of media trial, especially in a case like this. I also hold the belief that from the courts, not actually from press releases of EFCC, because these are the details. Because by this statement, if you read the EFCC statement as you just read now in the program, you can see that it is more of a conviction.
Your account is low. Please recharge as soon as possible, or dial.
Well, we will be continuing the discussion shortly after this breather. Please stay with us. All right, thank you for staying with us. We are still here with Jonathan Onoja in the studio, and of course we had, the perspective from one of us, the Deputy General Editor Abdulaziz, who was also giving his own thoughts about the recent happening, the arrest of the Accountant General of the Federation. Now, let's hear from you as well. Your own thoughts around this particular story, the arrest of the Accountant General.
Honestly, we must change the narratives, because so many people believe it's just the usual media trial. If I begin to ask questions today, we will not get out of here. What happened? Is it the first time? What happened to the Secretary of the Government? What is this level of trial today? So when the government says we're fighting corruption, and this fight against corruption is like one-sided and like the eye of the eagle on the EFCC flag itself, then there's no just cause, in that light. We talked about corruption in government. We've not been able to dig deep about government officials who have looted money that Mr. President is aware. I am saying Mr. President is aware because they are in his cabinet. Nigerians are saying, no, this is becoming so much, this is becoming too much. The last time we said this happened was when the Secretary to the Government was suspended. And
the then Secretary to the Government.
He said, who is presidency? He came out bold to tell you, people, media, and said, who is presidency? So you can see that, that level of confidence, that even when they do evil, they are not showing any kind of remorse over what they have done. They feel that it is their right to do that, and nothing is truly happening. Nothing is truly happening. With the other time we said the former EFCC chairman was involved in this and that. What is the level of the trial? And Nigerians are asking questions, and we're not getting, to the root of the matter. We use 1 year to fight, 5 years, 6 years to fight this case now. You will see it. And at the end of the day, nothing will happen.
But and even the ones that we've secured convictions, we end up releasing them, isn't it?
That is the level.
So presidential pardon.
Presidential pardon. No. I could have swear done that and seek for presidential pardon. So when there's no deterrent, you are very convinced. You are convinced that there's going to be what presidential pardon. Why not you do it more?
But in this instance, the EFCC appears to have done a thorough job. I mean, with everything they said yesterday.
There's thorough job always.
Aren't you hopeful that this will get to a conclusion? We'll see a conclusion in this matter.
You're just waiting to get the words from me, right?
I am telling you that I am very, very sure His Excellency is aware, even before it gets to the tune of 5 billion, 10 billion, 20 billion. He is aware. Because the money is not just disappearing from the federation account without anything. There must be something that they're using this money for, and there is no, there is no follow-up as to know exactly what they're using the money for. So that is to show that, by implication, His Excellency is aware.
Well, to take on somebody as big as the accountant general, you have to be sure that you have all your facts. So the EFCC could not have just gone and said, okay, you're under arrest. They needed to have something. But maybe that was why it took this long.
The federation account is not managed by the accountant general, so-called now. The federation account is linked to, even the president know exactly what is there. So if if you give an agency 100 billion, you must know exactly what they are using the 100 billion for. So this particular 80 billion we are hearing, how did it fly out of the federation account unaccounted for? That shows that some levels of
issuing of contracts,
consultancies,
by proxy.
That is to let you know that there are no follow-up when it comes to execution of contract, and that is the worst corruption in government. That is to show that the government is weak. You cannot give me, you cannot be at the villa there and say Daily Trust construction worth 2 billion, and then there's no one day I come here to come and do what? To come and visit Daily Trust construction that is I've approved 2 billion. There is no follow-up, there is no consistency, and that shows that the government is weak. That's the truth, that's the implication.
But now that this has happened, what do you hope to see?
Well, to me, when corruption becomes too many, I don't see any other thing again as compromise. The case of competency, compromise, and the minus of consequences. The man could be good in his job, could be good at his job, very good. He could be a very good chartered accountant, he can do the job, he can do this, he could be a professor, it could be that. Now that is what we're talking about, proficiency, competency. He's very competent. The one who now compromise, he has compromised. That is the implication of the 3 C's. He has compromised. Then what should be given to him? There should be consequences. Then the question Nigerians have been asking since 2015 is that, where are the consequences in the sea? There is no consequences. So we are not even expecting consequences in this.
Well, let's hope that at the end of the day, the law takes its course, because yes, he's still a suspect, from what we are hearing, and hopefully it's not just yet another media trial, and that the EFCC have all the evidences to actually prove this in court, because it's one thing to make this arrest and it's another to actually secure a conviction as far as this is concerned. Let's talk about other political issues. INEC, is insisting on its timelines. Political parties are pleading for extensions. Now, if you take a look at the lead story on the Punch newspaper, it says, timetable, INEC talks 12 as 18 parties fail to conduct primaries. It is insisting that no going back on election timetable. June 3rd deadline, it's sacrosanct. APC others intensify lobbying as commission says terminal date for primaries is fixed. And then you see also PDP postpones governorship and Senate primaries for the 3rd time. It is citing IPOB's sit-at-home order. Is that enough? Is that?
We've been having, Boko Haram, terrorism, and all of that. They conducted primaries, before the 2015 election, right? There is no amount of insecurity. Although insecurity is a very, a big factor that would affect the electoral situation or the elections in 2023. No doubt about it. But we've not even gone to 2023. You're giving us excuses why you cannot hold just party primaries.
Do you think that perhaps maybe the political parties and some government appointees feel that they will be able to
get an extension?
Yeah, either get an extension or get a kind of an injunction in court that would jettison or put aside, that, provision of
that means you're going to alter the INEC Act. The INEC has a mandate. And then you're taking them to court for an institution of government that said this is what we want. And the political parties decide. INEC is constitutionally backed up. I hope you understand it. INEC is constitutionally backed up. It's a frame set up by the constitution of government. But then, these are political parties that emerge as a result of one thing or the other that can even be deregistered tomorrow. Can INEC be deregistered from anything by court? No. So INEC is an institution of government that must be respected, and their decision must be respected. So when you see the selfish games of politicians taking over them, all because they want to have a consensus over a particular candidate, and the candidates that have not yet emerged, that will take time. You see what happened when it was time for example, the APC convention before the Adamu came up as the chairman. You see, unopposed, they are looking at the body language of Mr. President. Has Mr. President spoken? Or what is he going to say this time around? So the more he keep quiet, the more they get confused. So they need to seek for him to speak like a god who has to speak first before the decision of the people must be made.
Another concern a lot of people are raising is the fact that the two major parties have fixed their primaries for 28th of May and 30th, 31st. And some people are saying that it's coming too close to the deadline, and that could affect the quality of the convention that they'll have, and at the end, even the quality of the candidate that may be presented to the public.
Did they even have any quality when it comes to primary elections in Nigeria? What are the qualities we're looking at? Have we been able to meet up a date, a time frame, and say, let's do this? And when we have that, you see, it's going to be an overnight case. The president has spoken, and then for the PDP, this is the body language of the delegates, and this is what the people have said, the stakeholders. So let's go with this. So not until this moves, you see, in the adjoining this, until you see maybe somebody come up and say, no, it's this candidate. I don't want to mention a particular candidate. It is this candidate, and the queue behind him, everybody will go. Then when you see that Mr. President comes and said, hey, this is the man we want, convention will hold immediately. Primaries will begin to hold overnight. So they are looking at the body language of the words of the president and the stakeholders of different political parties before primaries can hold. Primaries can be slated on the paper now. As you and I speak, if the president just give a body language now, primaries can hold tomorrow. That is the way the political system is working. And INEC must say no to it, because if they continue to do that, then there is no internal democracy.
All right. Okay. Well, we've talked about quite a lot on this segment. It's time for us to end it. Thank you so much for joining us on Daybreak at this moment, and for sharing your perspectives with us on some of these stories.
Where you find that they look like the same.
Not necessarily tribal or regional.
I have said that.